Oh, that's good. That's good morning. Immigration has been a very hot topic and also has been very controversial, not only in this country, but in many places around the world. I myself, I'm an immigrant. I was born in Camagüey, Cuba. That's the third largest city in Cuba. This is Camagüey. And the city was known for its tinajones. It was called the city of tinajones. Tinajones are water vessels that were imported from Spain. The more tinajones you had, the wealthier you were. It was also known for its churches and plazas and its beautiful sandy turquoise beaches. My parents, Conchita and Juanito, were from also immigrants. They were from, my father was from Spain, my mother was from Lebanon. My mother was a writer. She also had a very popular radio program in Cuba. My father was a businessman. He had several businesses. Among them, he had export-import companies. He had restaurants, hotels, and electronics among some of his businesses. That's one of the hotels. 1956, a group of rebels who were in exile in Mexico, they invaded the eastern part of Cuba. There were about 82 of them, and most of them were apprehended and killed by Batista's men. But 17 of them made it to the mountains, led by their leader, Fidel Castro. They started the guerrilla warfare and started coming down and attacking barracks. They had many sympathizers in Cuba. One of them was a cousin of my mother's, and he approached my mother and asked her to talk to my father and have him bring some radio transmitters from the United States. My father had the import company, and he also had some contacts at customs in Havana. My father was opposed to that, and he said, I don't want to get involved, I'm not into politics, but my mother's cousin insisted so much that she finally convinced my father, and they brought the radio transmitters. The only problem was that the radio transmitters came in the same day that the revolution broke, and he was forced to store the radio transmitters in one of his warehouses. One of the employees at the warehouse was very nosy, and he asked my father, he said, what's in those boxes? My father said, do not open them because I haven't received all the papers from customs. Well, he finally did, and he reported my father to the authorities, and they closed his business. They tortured him, threw him and my uncle in jail. And then finally, he confessed, my mother's cousin, and they let him out. But from that day on, they were labeled spies for the CIA. My father was one of the last people to bring a car into Cuba. It was a 1959 Chevy Impala, like the one you're seeing in the picture. It was black and white with a red leather interior. And one day, my father sends the chauffeur to get the car from the garage. And the chauffeur comes back and he says, the car is not there. He says, where's the car? He said, I don't know. So that evening, my father's watching the news on TV, and there's Fidel Castro driving the car, and his two bodyguards following him. He fell in love with the car, and he took it. Now, Castro approached the US first. A lot of people don't know that. And they turned him down. So it was during the Cold War, and Castro, who was so smart, approached the Soviet Union, and they loved the idea of having their army and missiles 90 miles from the US. There were rumors that kids were going to be sent to the Soviet Union to indoctrinate them and also to turn them into military fighters. So my mother and my father had to make a big decision. It was a tough decision, and they decided to send us away. There was a priest in Miami. His name was Father Brian Walsh, and he started Operation Pedro Pan. Pedro Pan, Peter Pan, what he did is he took kids from communist countries and he placed them in orphanage or with American families. And that's how I got out when I was 7. My sister was 6, and my father managed somehow to get my aunt out. And we lived in Miami. I went from being very comfortable to the opposite, being very poor. We lived in a tiny apartment, 1-bedroom apartment, 5 people. Now, this is the Freedom Tower, it's called now, but it used to be the Cuban Refugee Center. We would walk many, many blocks every week to get clothes and also to get food there. You laugh. It's not funny. It might be funny for me now. But anyway, this is one of the foods that we got. We got a big can of Spam. We got some powdered milk. We got some peanut butter. We got some cheese and rice, and sometimes we got some beans. I ate Spam for the next 7.5 years. Breakfast, lunch, and dinner. They were getting pretty desperate in Cuba. They were breaking into our house every other week, looking for radio transmitters, also looking for US dollars. My mother, who was a writer, she wrote us a letter and she said, I want you to write it in your own handwriting and send it to the First Lady of Mexico. And that's Guadalupe Borja. We sent her the letter, and it was a very sad letter. And in the meantime, some of my uncles and aunts in Cuba, they told my father there's this American captain, and he has a boat. And every so often, he takes people secretly across the Florida Straits to the US. It was going to cost $2,000. $2,000 is a lot of money then, it's a lot of money now, especially when you couldn't have dollars in Cuba. So my parents decided to do it. But the day before they were supposed to leave on the boat, they got notice from the Mexican embassy that they were being granted a special visa. So it was going to take about 4 to 6 months. My father decided, let's not risk it, let's do it legally. So the next day, they said goodbye to their brothers and sisters and cousins, and they said, we'll see you in Miami. Little they know that it was a trap. The captain, when he got on the boat, he lit up a cigarette, and that was a signal. He jumped in the water, and they killed everybody. Eventually, my parents made it to Mexico and then to Miami. And when I greeted my father in Miami, I gave him all my savings. I earned money doing shoe shine, selling newspapers, and recycling bottles. $78.63. So I handed him the money and I said, go get a suit and a tie, get a good job, because I don't want to see and I don't want to eat Spam for the rest of my life. One of the problems my father had, he couldn't speak English. So the only job that he could get there was at a factory. So he had some friends in San Juan, Puerto Rico, and they said, why don't you come down and we'll help you with start your own business. He started a couple of businesses and did very, very well. I ended up finishing high school in Puerto Rico. I started the university in Puerto Rico, and then I transferred to the University of Massachusetts in Amherst. They had one of the top zoology programs in the country. I did a double major. I did zoology and I did math. When I graduated, they asked me to teach at the university, so that's how I started my teaching career. I taught for over 32 years at the university and also other colleges, not only in Massachusetts, but around the world. I went back and did my master's degree and did my doctorate. And one of the things we started doing is, my doctorate was in marine biology. So I started doing a lot of research with a group at Yale University. And we specialized in whales, manatees, and we did research all over the world. One of our specialty was when whales beached themselves or stranded, we helped them out, or we did necropsies. And we trained scientific personnel all over the world. Now, one of the best advices my father always gave me, he said, you can be in a very good position at the university, you can be very good friends with the president of the college, but he said, one day he gets out on the wrong side of the bed and he can fire you. So he said, always have your own business. I have had my own business since I was 16, and in 1996, opened my own cigar business in the Dominican Republic. I named it after my father, Juanito, and I teamed up with another Cuban, and we've been producing cigars ever since. We export most of them here to the United States or to Europe. One of my favorite cigar is the one we did a few years later, and I named it the 419. 419 is my anniversary cigar. It's the day I get out of Cuba, April 19th, so it's my freedom cigar. We do cigars for a lot of private companies. We do cigars for the White House. This is the President Herbert Hoover. We also do for other companies, so our cigar business has expanded very well. In 2007, I met my wife at a conference at the university in Arizona State University. And the next year, I decided to move there. All my friends, they thought I was crazy. They said, you have tenure at the university, you're the chairman of the math department, you have a very good salary. People are looking for work, and you're going to quit, you're going to take an early retirement. And then they said, and you're a marine biologist, what are you going to do in the desert? So I told them, this is a new chapter in my life, you only live once. So I moved to Arizona. They offered me a full-time position at Arizona State University, and I taught mathematics there, mostly to nursing students for the next 3 years. One day I came home and told my wife, I gotta get out of here. So we took a 30-day road trip, and we said the first place that we fall in love, we're just gonna move. And we fell in love with the little town of Buford. So we moved here. And we started our own business. It's called Tacaron. It's a small boutique wine shop between Bluffton and Buford on 170, where we sell our cigars. We also sell our coffee, which is imported, 100% pure coffee, and I name it after my parents, Juanito Conchita. And we also do unique wines that are very affordable from Spain, South America, and Europe. Now, one of the things we wanted to do is we wanted to give back to the community. So we formed a nonprofit foundation. It's called El Campesino. We do a lot of charity work here in the area. We also do it national. But we adopted this impoverished village in the Dominican Republic. It's called Oviedo, and it's right by the Haitian border. And 2 years ago, we totally funded 3 water wells. They have never had any water in that village. So now they have drinking water, and they can irrigate. We also support the clinic. We bring vaccines and medications, medical equipment. And last, these are some of the kids. I get a lot of people who ask me, are you bitter or resentful about what happened to you in Cuba? And I always respond, I say, in a way, yes, but it also gave me the drive and the ambition to lead a more exciting, interesting, and rewarding life. Thank you.